hoodie was faded, the jeans were worn, and the man underneath it all was a name that could sign checks, build futures, or walk away from it all. Malcolm Rhodes stood across the street from Thelma's grill, hands buried in his pockets, shoulders loose but eyes sharp. Above the restaurant door, his grandmother's name glowed in flickering neon, green and gold. Mama Thelma, the woman who taught him how to season food and how to forgive without forgetting. But today, he wasn't here as CEO. No driver, no assistant, no tailored suit. Just a black man in a hoodie, undercover. Because something wasn't right. Whispers had found him. Whispers from customers, from old employees, even a stranger on Reddit. The culture felt off, cold, maybe even racist. And Malcolm didn't believe in fixing problems through email. He believed in walking through the front door, quiet, observing, listening. And today, he was here to expose the truth not through security footage, but through silence. What he found inside would change everything. Not just the way he ran the business, but the way he saw the people wearing his grandmother's name over their hearts. This isn't your average CEO story. This is about what happens when a man returns to the house he built and finds out he no longer belongs there. It's about what's said when they think the boss isn't watching. About bias dressed as banter. About lazy service that covers something deeper. And it's about the quiet kind of power. The kind that doesn't fire people to feel strong, it tells the truth and watches who stays to face it. If you believe in second chances, in calling out what's racist even when it hides behind gum chewing and fake smiles, then this story is for you. Like, share, subscribe, because someone out there needs this reminder. You don't have to yell to be powerful. You just have to show up. Now let's begin. Because at exactly 12:46 p.m., on a Wednesday no one expected, the man they thought was just another walk-in. He was the owner, and he was done being invisible. The bell above the door gave a half-hearted ding, the kind of sound that used to spark smiles and greetings. Today it didn't even turn a head. Malcolm Rhodes stepped into Thelma's grill, shoulders relaxed but senses razor-sharp. The scent was right-smoked brisket, honey-glazed carrots, cornbread still steaming from the oven. It hit him like memory, like Sundays in Mama Thelma's kitchen. But the soul felt missing. No one looked up. Not Haley Monroe, the young cashier at the counter, who smacked her gum between swipes on her phone. Not Travis Green, the second cashier, who leaned against the soda machine like gravity had betrayed him. Malcolm stood in line, a line he paid for, built from scratch, seasoned with stories that weren't in any franchise manual. And no one noticed him. He didn't wear his title today. No blazer, no press kit smile, just old jeans, a black hoodie half-zipped, and a Braves cap pulled low. He was here undercover, not as a test but as a reckoning. Finally, Haley glanced up without making eye contact. "Next," she mumbled. He stepped forward. Pulled pork sandwich, baked beans on the side. She tapped the screen like she was trying to ignore the moment. Yeah, thanks. He handed her a 20. She looked at the bill like it was wet. "You sure you got enough?" she muttered. "Just loud enough to cut, just soft enough to deny." Malcolm said nothing. He offered the kind of nod that doesn't beg for dignity, it carries it. As he stepped to the side, the country song on the speakers shifted to something slower. A steel guitar mourned in the background while chairs scraped across tile. Then it happened. Travis leaned toward Haley, not even pretending to whisper. "You see him? Another one of those walk-ins. Bet he's off that shelter list." Haley snorted. "Don't even tip. They never do. Since they started hiring from that program, it's been going downhill fast." Malcolm blinked. No flinch, no twitch. He just stood there, still, silent, letting them forget who built this room brick by brick so he could remember exactly who needed to leave it. He should have felt rage. But Malcolm Rhodes didn't burn. Not yet. Anger was loud, predictable, but what curled inside his chest now was quieter, heavier. It settled behind the ribs like a sigh too proud to be released. Disappointment. He looked around the room. An elderly man near the window gently stirred his coffee. His face pinched like he was waiting for something that would never come. 2 booths away, a mother whispered songs into her toddler's ear to calm the child and perhaps herself as no server came to check in. In the far corner, a construction worker wiped dust from his boots, glancing at the counter with that defeated look that says, "They'll call me when they feel like it." This wasn't just bad service. This was cultural decay, the kind that didn't arrive all at once, but chipped away slowly, like rot beneath floorboards. And the rot had names, faces, voices. Travis Green still grinning as he slipped his phone into his pocket. "Bet the owner's somewhere in Buckhead drinking celery smoothies," he said with a chuckle. Haley responded without lifting her head. "He's probably one of those fake deep black dudes. Says he cares about the community, but don't show up for his own kitchen." That one stung. Not because it was false, but because it was half true. Malcolm hadn't been here in weeks. Not in person. Not his presence. The pandemic, the board meetings, the real estate expansions, it all created distance. And distance made room for people like Travis and Haley to plant their own version of culture. But what grew from that soil was twisted. He turned slowly and stepped back to the counter. Haley was chewing again, oblivious. "Actually," Malcolm said, voice low and firm, "cancel that sandwich." Travis raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" Malcolm met his eyes for the first time. "I lost my appetite." And with those 4 words, he turned and walked out the front door, the hoodie still zipped, the cap still low. But the storm had already started. They just didn't know who it was raining for. The sidewalk behind Thelma's grill was cracked, uneven, and quiet, the kind of space nobody cleaned but everyone used. Malcolm walked slowly, counting steps, until he reached the side alley. No one noticed him leave. No one bothered to wonder why the man in the hoodie didn't take his food. At the rear of the building stood a dented steel door, the back entrance. No cameras. Just the smell of grease and cigarette smoke clinging to the bricks. Above the door, a narrow kitchen window sat cracked open. He didn't mean to stop, but something a laugh caught his ear. Low. Familiar. Full-bodied. Reggie Miles, the grill master, the old soul. The man Malcolm hired 5 years ago from a halfway house, back when no one else would look him in the eye, let alone hand him keys to the kitchen. Malcolm edged closer. "I'm telling you," Travis said from inside, voice sharp with mockery. "If that ghost boss ever comes back, it'll be to take another photo and bounce. Man probably thinks he invented gumbo." Haley's gum cracked again. "I call him Mr. Invisible," she added. "Picture on the wall. Never seen him in person. What kind of black owner runs a joint like this but don't show up?" Another round of laughter. Malcolm leaned against the brick wall. His jaw tightened, but he stayed still. Then a shift. Reggie's voice, lower, steady, no joke in it. "You all know he started this place with $200 and a smoker in his backyard, right?" Haley scoffed. "So?" Reggie didn't raise his voice, but the steel in it scraped through the window like a blade drawn slow. "So watch your mouth." A pause. "This ain't just some job to some of us," Reggie continued. "This is a second shot. This is her name on the wall, and I remember when that meant something." A silence bloomed, not empty, but heavy, like everyone knew they crossed a line, but didn't have the words to climb back. Travis chuckled nervously. "Man, relax. We were just talking." "No," Reggie said, firmer now. "You were disrespecting." Malcolm stepped back from the wall. Not because he couldn't listen more, but because he'd already heard what mattered. The culture he'd built was cracking. But one man, one steady voice was still holding the beam. The sun hadn't finished rising, but Thelma's grill was already stretching awake, light flickering through the blinds, fryers warming, and the scent of old oil mixing with fresh coffee. Malcolm Rhodes sat in his parked car across the street. This time, no hoodie, no cap, Just a charcoal blazer over a clean white button-down, dark jeans, and boots that still carried dust from the alley behind his building. The mask was off, and every nerve in his body was alert. He watched the staff trickle in, one by one. Haley Monroe arrived late, phone in hand, typing with both thumbs as she pushed open the side door without looking up. Travis Green followed, earbuds in, chuckling at something on his screen, not a care in the world. Reggie Miles was already there, unlocking the back with the key Malcolm himself had handed him all those years ago. Then came Lena, Jamila, the dish guys. Quiet chatter. Stifled yawns. No one expected today to be different. At 9:02 a.m., Malcolm opened the car door. The sound was soft but final. He stepped across the street, into sunlight that caught the metal of his belt buckle and reflected just enough to draw eyes. Lena Brooks looked up first. Her eyebrows jumped. Then Reggie, who held eye contact with Malcolm for a single second and gave a barely there nod. A nod of recognition, of respect, of warning to others. Haley froze. Travis took a step back like someone had pulled the floor from under him. Malcolm didn't look at either of them. He didn't need to. He walked through the front door of his own restaurant, slow, silent, claiming every inch of space as if air itself remembered him. Inside, the staff was gathering awkwardly. Some leaned on counters, some perched on booth seats like students unsure if this was a pop quiz or a trial. Malcolm stood still at the center of the room. Then he cleared his throat, calm, steady. "I won't keep you long," he said. "But I need to say some things, and I want you to hear me, really, hear me." No one moved. Even the AC seemed to pause, letting the silence thicken in the room. Malcolm's voice didn't rise. He didn't pace. He just stood there, one hand resting on the back of a chair, the other in his pocket, speaking like a man who had spent the night remembering every word he hadn't said. "This place is named after my grandmother," he began. "Mama Thelma. She passed 15 years ago. But if any of you had ever met her, you'd understand why this place was never about just food." Reggie tilted his head slightly. Lena's fingers, resting on a counter, curled in closer to her palm. She fed people who couldn't pay, housed folks when it rained. She believed people weren't broken, just overlooked. He let that linger. "Then yesterday at 12:46 p.m., I walked into this building. I stood in line right there," he said, pointing to the floor near the register. "No one greeted me, no one smiled, no one cared." Haley's eyes dropped. Travis shifted his weight and crossed his arms too tight. "I ordered a pulled pork sandwich, paid in cash, and as I stood off to the side, waiting, I heard two employees talking about the man who supposedly owns this place. Now the room began to hold its breath. They said he doesn't show up, that he probably doesn't even know the people working here, that the staff from the shelter program are dragging this place downhill. He didn't name names. He didn't have to. I heard every word, every joke, every lazy assumption." He scanned the room slowly. "I didn't yell. I didn't out myself. I just canceled my order. And left." Another pause. "But I didn't leave because I was angry. I left because I needed to understand something deeper. How did this happen? How did we build a place meant to lift people and end up mocking them instead?" He turned, eyes sharp now. "And more importantly, who let it happen?" The room didn't move. Not a cough, not a shuffle. Just the thick, invisible weight of being seen too clearly. Malcolm took one step closer to the center. His tone didn't change, but the air did. "I built this place from a smoker in my backyard. I borrowed $200 and sold ribs out of foil trays just to keep the lights on." He looked around slowly, deliberately. "And somewhere along the way, I stopped showing up. That part's on me." Lena nodded slightly. Jamila blinked hard, like someone had finally said the thing no one dared admit. I let distance turn into silence. Malcolm continued. "And in that silence, some of you filled in your own stories. You convinced yourselves the owner didn't care, that the standards didn't matter, that the people walking in from our shelter program were less deserving." He paused, letting the words sting but not wound. "That's the part that's not on me." He turned toward Haley and Travis. Their names never left his lips, but his eyes landed on them like gravity, unavoidable and complete. That disrespect, that mockery, that casual cruelty. His voice dropped half a note. "That's on you." Haley's arms were now crossed tightly, her eyes fixed on the floor. Travis leaned back against the counter, trying to seem relaxed, but his jaw was clenched and his foot tapped faster than he realized. "I'm not here to yell," Malcolm said, shifting his stance. "I'm not here to fire people in front of an audience, but I am here to fix what's broken." Then he glanced at Reggie. The man stood steady, arms folded, unreadable but present. With him, always had been. "Some of you," Malcolm continued, "are still holding the heart of this place together, and that means more to me than you know." He turned to face the rest. "But others, you've been clocking in, collecting checks, and treating this place like it owes you something. That ends today." And just like that, the silence cracked not with sound, but with a shift in posture, the kind that says this is no longer the same room it was yesterday. Thelma's grill had never been this quiet in the morning, and yet, somehow, the silence spoke louder than shouting ever could. Malcolm let it sit for a moment longer. Then gently, but without hesitation, he turned toward the two people who had colored yesterday with venom they thought would stay secret. "You two," he said, voice firm but not raised. "Come with me." He didn't wait to see if they'd follow. He just turned and walked toward the back hallway past the kitchen, past the mop closet, to the narrow space near the pantry where sound didn't travel and no eyes could watch. The kind of room where people dropped their masks or kept them on too tight. Haley and Travis trailed behind like children called into the principal's office, but there was no desk between them now. Just a blank wall, a flickering light, and a man who had heard everything. Malcolm turned, shut the door, and leaned against it. "I'm giving you this moment," he said. "Say what you need to say. No cameras, no witnesses, just me, and the truth. What does this place mean to you, or doesn't?" For a beat, neither spoke. Then Travis shrugged. "I mean, it's a job. Pays okay. I clock in. Do what I do. It's not personal." Malcolm nodded once, slow, controlled. "Then you've been cashing the wrong kind of check." Haley shifted her weight, arms crossed, defensive. "You weren't around," she said. "We barely saw your face. It started to feel like none of it mattered anymore." "Fair," Malcolm admitted. "I disappeared. That's on me." He stepped forward now, just one slow step that closed space and opened consequence. "But tell me this. How does my absence justify talking about other staff like garbage, or mocking the same man who signs your checks?" Haley looked down. Travis didn't blink, but his silence said enough. "I'm not firing you," Malcolm said. "Not yet, because maybe what this place needs isn't fewer people, but better ones." He nodded toward the pantry door. "But this is your last shot. Show me you belong, with actions, not apologies. And if you can't do that..." He didn't finish the sentence. He just opened the door and walked out. By noon, the restaurant had begun to hum again, not with warmth, but with routine. Orders rang out, plates clattered, the fryer hissed like it always did. From the outside, everything looked functional, but Malcolm wasn't watching from the outside. He stood near the self-serve coffee station, one hand tucked into his pocket, the other holding a small leather notepad. He didn't speak, didn't hover. He just observed. Reggie was running the grill with the calm rhythm of a man who had nothing to prove. Lena floated between booths, offering half jokes and whole attention. Jamila moved with quiet precision behind the line. Then there was Haley standing straighter, smiling more, not convincingly, not yet, like someone trying on a new pair of shoes that didn't quite fit. Travis avoided eye contact, kept his voice low, and disappeared into the back every chance he got. At 12:46 p.m., the front bell dinged the exact same time as the day before. This time, it wasn't Malcolm in a hoodie. It was someone smaller, nervous. A teenage boy stepped in, hands stuffed into the pockets of a faded sweatshirt. He hovered near the entrance, scanning the room like he wasn't sure he was welcome or safe. Malcolm recognized that look. Noah Langston. New hire. Shelter program. First shift next week. But here he was early not to work. Just to belong. Haley looked at him, then looked away. Travis pretended not to see him at all. That's when Reggie emerged from the kitchen. He spotted Noah, nodded once, and said, "You got this." Noah stepped up to the counter, voice barely audible. Can I get the catfish combo greens instead of fries?" Haley tapped the screen. "That it?" He nodded. She rang it up, glanced toward Travis, who'd already turned away, and muttered, "Order up in 10. Noah stepped aside, clutching the receipt like it might vanish. Malcolm watched it all, and just like that, he'd seen everything he needed. When the line thinned, Malcolm walked to the counter. Not hurried, not loud, just steady like footsteps that carried more than weight. They carried truth. Haley looked up, expecting a drink request or a question. Instead, Malcolm pointed his chin toward the teenager now waiting quietly by the window. "You know who that is?" Haley blinked. "No. Should I?" "His name's Noah Langston," Malcolm said, voice calm. "Started the shelter program last week. First real paycheck since his mom passed. First meal he bought with his own money since then. 2. Haley's mouth opened slightly. Words stuck behind her teeth. Malcolm kept going, not angry, just exact. "He's not dangerous. He's not broken. He's just trying to start over like a lot of folks who've worked here." A pause. "He looked like he wanted to disappear," Haley said softly. Malcolm nodded. "That's how most people feel, when the world makes them feel small." She looked down at her hands, fingers pressed tight on the counter. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I mean it." He didn't nod. Not yet. Instead, he stepped back, hands behind his back, eyes steady. "Don't say it to me." He motioned toward the dining room where a man in overalls was refilling his tea, and a woman in scrubs was helping her child unwrap a cornbread muffin. "Say it through how you treat the next 10 people. Then he turned not cold but final and returned to the coffee station. A few minutes later, Reggie handed Noah his meal with a smile and a quiet fist bump. Noah's shoulders eased, just a little. And in that subtle exchange, unnoticed by most, something shifted. The rhythm returned. The register clicks sounded cleaner. The servers moved with intent, and in the quiet corners of the room, customers lingered longer than they needed to. Malcolm watched from his booth, not as CEO, but as guardian of the spirit that had almost gone missing. And for the first time in weeks, Thelma's grill started to feel like home again. The shift ended quieter than usual. No shouting across the kitchen, no complaints about tips, no sarcastic banter behind the counter. Just the low hum of mop buckets rolling and silverware being stacked in bundles of silence. At 4:45 p.m., the last customer left. Malcolm stood near the register, arms folded, watching the final chairs get turned upside down onto tables. Then he spoke not loud, but clear enough to cut through the walls. "Let's meet in the front." No one questioned it. The team gathered slowly, unsure whether to stand or sit, to breathe or brace. They took positions around the room like pieces on a chessboard, each one carrying the weight of what had and hadn't been said over the past 24 hours. Malcolm stepped forward. "I want to thank y'all for today," he said. "For the first time in a long time. This place didn't just function, it felt... that matters." Reggie gave a quiet nod. Jamila leaned against the wall, arms loose, listening. Haley stared down at her sneakers. Travis kept his gaze somewhere near the exit sign. "But one good shift doesn't fix everything," Malcolm added. "It just shows who's willing to try." He reached into his leather folio and pulled out 2 folders, held them in plain sight. "This one," he said, raising the first, "is for those who want to stay. Not just show up, but stay in the real sense, with heart with accountability. He paused, lifted the second. This one is for anyone who wants to move on. No shame, no questions, no heat. He laid both folders on the counter, side by side. As of tonight, I'll need an answer. No speeches, no drama, just a name and a choice. A ripple moved through the room. Lena shifted in her seat. Reggie crossed his arms tighter. Travis glanced at Haley. She didn't look back. Malcolm took one step back and let the silence settle again. Clocking in is easy, he said, but staying with integrity, that's something you have to sign with more than a pen. No one moved at first. The folders sat on the counter like silent judges, one offering commitment, the other release, and between them, a truth hung in the air. No one could hide behind the schedule anymore. Then, without a word, Reggie Miles stepped forward. He didn't look at anyone, didn't clear his throat, didn't ask permission. He picked up the folder marked Stay, flipped to the signature page, and wrote his name. When he slid the folder back across the counter, his voice came low and firm. "I'm staying," he said. "This place saved me once. Time I returned the favor." Malcolm didn't respond. He didn't need to. The moment had already echoed louder than applause. A few beats later, Jamila Carter followed. She tucked a loose curl behind her ear, looked Malcolm in the eye, and said simply, "I haven't had a kitchen feel this real in years. I'm not walking away from that." Lena Brooks was next. She added her name with the kind of calm that says I already decided hours ago. But it wasn't all solidarity. In the far booth, Haley sat still, her jaw tense, her fingers interlaced too tightly on her lap. She didn't move toward either folder. And across the room, Travis leaned forward on his elbows, eyes locked on the floor like answers were hiding in the tile grout. Malcolm watched them both not with judgment, but with clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when excuses have run out and the room only holds truth. "I don't need your answer now," he said quietly. "But by closing, I will." He turned back to the rest of the team. "No one here's perfect. I'm not. Lord knows I've been absent too long. But what I won't allow anymore is people clocking in with no intention to care." Then, softer. "This place carries my grandmother's name. I'll defend it with grace, yes, but I'll defend it." And just like that, he walked away, leaving the folders behind. No more speeches, no more chances to hide. Just paper and choice. The clock above the soda machine ticked past 4:15 p.m. The room had scattered slightly, some staff were sweeping, others restocking, but the folders remained where they'd been left, like twin beacons daring anyone to be honest. Haley Monroe sat alone in the corner booth, her apron folded neatly beside her, her phone dark, her fingers pressed together in a steeple, unmoving. Malcolm saw her watching the folder marked Go like it was calling her by name. He walked over, not to rush her, not to prod, just to stand nearby, silent, present. After a long pause, Haley looked up. "I think I need to leave," she said, barely above a whisper. Malcolm didn't flinch, didn't try to talk her out of it. "You sure?" he asked. She nodded once. "I don't think I was ever really built for a place like this. I was chasing a paycheck. You need people who chase purpose." Her words weren't bitter. They were clear and tired, the clarity that comes when the noise finally burns out. Malcolm studied her face, not with judgment, but respect. "Thank you," he said. "For being honest, that matters more than staying." She managed a small, crooked smile. "I was wrong yesterday. You weren't invisible. I just didn't know how to see what mattered." "You do now," Malcolm replied. Haley stood, picked up the Go folder, signed without ceremony, and folded her uniform on the booth seat like a quiet offering of something once held too lightly. As she walked toward the door, she paused. "You'll be all right," she said. "This place, Malcolm smiled faintly. "That's the plan." And with that, she left. No slamming, no storming, just the hush of someone who'd finally stepped out of the wrong room. Malcolm turned back toward the kitchen. A chapter had closed not with noise, but with grace. And as the sun dipped low outside the window, only one person still hadn't made their choice. Travis Green. The restaurant had closed 2 hours earlier. Chairs were stacked, floors mopped, lights dimmed except for the warm glow over the counter and a single bulb above Malcolm's booth by the window. He sat there alone, sipping cold tea, eyes scanning the pages of a spiral-bound notebook filled with half-legible notes from the day moments, glances, names underlined twice. Then came the sound, a soft knock against glass. He looked up. Travis Green stood at the door, no apron, no smirk, just a man in a gray hoodie, holding something under his arm. Malcolm didn't wave him in. He just nodded once, and that was enough. Travis stepped inside quietly, almost reverently, as if the floor might reject him if he stomped too hard. He walked straight to the booth and laid a folder on the table. The folder marked stay. Malcolm looked at it, then looked at him. Travis broke the silence first. "I talked too much," he said. "Didn't realize how loud I was. Or how ugly." Malcolm didn't reply immediately. He leaned back, letting the moment breathe. "You weren't just loud," he said, voice low, steady. "You were wrong." Travis nodded. Silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was honest. "I don't want to lose this job," Travis said. "I thought I didn't care. But I do. Now." Malcolm studied him. The twitch in his jaw was gone. The arrogance had thinned into something quieter, almost accountable. "I believe in second chances," Malcolm said. He tapped the folder once, gently. "But only when the first one gets acknowledged." Travis straightened his spine. Not defensive. Just standing taller, like the weight he carried now had purpose. "Got it." Malcolm gave a slight nod. No smile. But no wall, either. Travis turned to leave, then paused. "You really started this place with $200, he asked. Malcolm glanced toward the kitchen door. 200 and a smoker that caught fire twice. For the first time, Travis smiled, not wide, not cocky, just real. Then he left, and this time, he closed the door softly behind him. The next morning, Malcolm unlocked the front door of Thelma's Grill just past 6:15 a.m. He was alone. No music yet, no fryers humming, just the low creak of floorboards under his boots and the faint scent of yesterday's cornbread still lingering in the air. He poured himself a cup of coffee, black, no sugar, and stood in the middle of the quiet kitchen, staring at a faded photograph pinned to the corkboard above the prep table. Mama Thelma, in her Sunday hat, arms crossed, lips pressed but smiling with her eyes that look only Southern grandmothers can master. A warning and a blessing all in one. "I almost lost this place, Grandma," Malcolm whispered. And then he turned on the lights. By 7:00 a.m., the building had begun to fill with life. Reggie arrived first, as always, unlocking the back door with a quiet nod. Jamila followed with a fresh apron over her shoulder and a thermos in hand. Lena brought in a tray of fresh herbs she'd picked up on the way. Even Travis showed up early in uniform, with no earbuds, no slouch, just presence. By 8:00 a.m., Thelma's Grill smelled like home again. And by 8:20, the first customer walked in, an older man in a navy jacket and pressed khakis. He took a seat by the window, glanced around, and ordered a black coffee and grits without needing a menu. Lena served him like he was her uncle. Later, after his meal, he folded a handwritten note and left it under the salt shaker before slipping out quietly. Malcolm found it an hour later. Messy cursive, blue ink. "Been coming here since y'all opened. Thought I lost the feeling when it changed, but today, it felt like Thelma again. Whoever she was, I can tell she's still here. Thank you." Malcolm read it twice, folded it once, then tucked it into his wallet like something too precious to leave behind. No fanfare, no applause. But in that note was the reason he built it all in the first place. It was just past 3:00 p.m. when the door chimed again, this time softer, almost as if it were asking permission to be hopeful. Noah Langston stepped inside. But something was different. The hoodie was gone. He wore a button-up shirt, still a little wrinkled, but tucked in. His shoes were clean, his hair freshly brushed. There was a quiet dignity in the way he stood, like someone who had finally been given permission to take up space. Reggie spotted him first. Wiping his hands on a dish towel, he emerged from the kitchen and walked straight toward the boy. "Well, look who's walking like he owns the sidewalk now," Reggie said with a grin. Noah smiled back, not wide, but real. "I just came to say thanks," he said. "Got a job. City bus cleaning crew over on Glenwood. Early mornings. But it's solid." Reggie clapped him on the back with a hand so large it nearly covered his shoulder. "That's what I like to hear." Malcolm watched from the far end of the counter. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. The scene played itself raw and simple. "I'm good, man," Noah said to Reggie. "Like, really. First time I've said that in a while." Reggie's smile faded slightly, replaced with something stronger. Pride. Quiet. Heavy. "That's what this place is for," he said. Noah nodded, gave a grateful glance toward the counter where Haley no longer stood, and where Travis now moved like a man earning his space, and then turned to leave. He didn't rush. He didn't shrink. And as the bell above the door gave one last, gentle ring, Malcolm felt something shift, not in the room, but in himself. The culture wasn't perfect, but it was no longer rotting. It was recovering. And sometimes, that was more powerful than any speech could be. The sun had just broken over the rooftops when the staff began arriving. No one was late. Not because they feared discipline, but because something invisible had shifted. Like the floor had been scrubbed clean of old excuses. By 7:55 a.m., the entire team stood in the dining area, some leaning on booth backs, others with aprons still half-tied. Reggie leaned in the doorway, arms crossed but eyes soft. Travis stood near the register, quiet but focused. Lena sipped coffee from a reusable cup. No one scrolled their phones. Malcolm stepped forward, not from behind a podium, not with a clipboard, just a folded paper in one hand and presents in the other. "First of all," he said, voice level, "thank you. Yesterday felt like Thelma's again. And that matters." A few heads nodded. Someone muttered, "Sure did." "But one good day," he continued, "isn't a culture. It's a spark. And if we're smart, we protect it." He unfolded the paper. "Starting this week, we're doing staff check-ins every month, not 5-minute hallway chats, real conversations. I'll be here twice a week. You'll see my face. That's a promise." He scanned the room. "And we're bringing back customer feedback cards, not the digital stuff, real ones, on the tables. If people feel seen, they'll speak. We're going to listen." Lena smiled at that. "And most important," Malcolm said, his voice dipping slightly, "if you can't bring respect into this building for the food, for the people, for the purpose, then don't clock in." He let that hang. Not as threat, but as standard. "I'm not asking for perfection," he added. "I'm asking for presence, because the people who walk through that door every day, they know the difference." A pause. Then Reggie spoke up, voice low. "They sure do." And that was it. No roll call, no attendance sheet, just a team reminded of where they stood, and why. The meeting ended the same way it began, with quiet. But this time, it wasn't silence, it was alignment. The lunch rush hit Thelma's grill at 12:03 p.m. sharp. Kids in school polos asked for extra fries. A construction crew filled the corner booth, boots tapping rhythm into the floor. A grandmother wiped BBQ sauce from her grandson's chin with a napkin folded like a prayer. It wasn't loud, it was alive. Malcolm watched from behind the counter, arms folded, not in control but in rhythm. Reggie danced between the fryer and grill like he was orchestrating a jazz set. Jamila plated catfish with the kind of care usually reserved for church potlucks. Lena cracked a joke about overcooked biscuits to a regular and got a laugh that sounded like loyalty. Then, the door opened and in walked a man who did not fit. Charcoal suit, pressed collar, eyes scanning like he'd stepped into the wrong part of town. He sat near the front window, checking his phone, adjusting his watch, reading the menu like it might judge him first. A corporate traveler, Probably from out of state. Probably the kind who expects truffle oil in his grits. Lena saw him. She didn't hesitate. Brought him water before he could ask. Gave him a smile that wasn't performative. It was grounded. "Catfish is best today," she said, friendly but confident. "Just saying." He looked up, surprised by the warmth. "Oh, all right, sure, I'll try that." She nodded, wrote nothing down, walked away like she'd already memorized his tempo. Malcolm watched it unfold, not with pride but with a small exhale of relief. Because Lena wasn't serving a type, she was serving a human. And the man in the suit, he leaned back, relaxed his shoulders, sipped his water like he'd just realized he was thirsty for more than hydration. When the plate arrived, he took one bite, then closed his eyes for a second longer than expected. Later, he left with 2 to-go boxes and asked Lena for her name. "Just in case I'm back next quarter," he said. She smiled. "We'll still be here." And this time, she meant we in the truest sense. By late afternoon, the rush had eased into a calm lull. Sunlight poured in through the windows like syrup, golden, slow, warm. The clink of utensils, the hush of wiping tables, and the low buzz of a gospel playlist on Reggie's Bluetooth speaker set the tone. Malcolm sat at his usual booth by the window, sipping what was left of his now cold coffee. He wasn't watching anymore. He was taking it in. This wasn't oversight. It was belonging. Then Jamila Carter walked over, apron slightly stained, curls tied back in a bun that had started to loosen. Without a word, she placed a plate in front of him, still warm, still steaming. Peach cobbler. The crust dusted with brown sugar. Cinnamon edge just right, baked with memory more than measurement. "I fixed it just like her recipe," she said, proud but quiet. Malcolm looked at the plate, then at her. "Thelma's?" Jamila nodded, used the old card taped inside the pantry door. Faded as hell, but I could still read her handwriting. He picked up a fork, took one bite, closed his eyes, chewed slow, then smiled, not wide, not performative, just enough for truth to show through. "That's the one," he said. Jamila beamed. "She'd be proud of you," she added softly. "Of this." Malcolm paused fork mid-air and swallowed more than the cobbler. Gratitude, memory, grief that had finally learned how to be quiet. "She better be," he said with a low chuckle. "She gave me the name. All I'm doing is trying to be worthy of it." Jamila nodded, then turned to leave. But before she could walk off, she slid something onto the table. Folded paper. Not from a guest this time. He unfolded it. A drawing, pencil sketch, rough, but full of care. It was Mama Thelma. Same Sunday hat, same arms crossed smile, but this time, the sign behind her read, "Still watching." Malcolm didn't say a word. He just folded it once, and slid it into the inside pocket of his blazer like something too sacred for anyone else to see. Before the brick walls, before the logo, before Thelma's Grill had a Yelp review or a fryer that didn't creak, there was a driveway, a rusty smoker, and 2 folding chairs. And there was her. Thelma Rhodes sat with her legs crossed at the ankles, church fan in one hand, a chipped coffee mug in the other. She wore her Sunday dress on a Thursday, because she said, God don't care what day it is when you serve something honest. Malcolm was 28 then, fresh out of a business degree he couldn't afford, heart bruised by 3 failed restaurant partnerships, and 1 eviction notice away from giving up. They were in Monroe, Georgia, under a sky that couldn't decide between thunder or blessing. The smoker coughed up uneven smoke. The folding table beside it held a tray of ribs that weren't cut clean, but they were seasoned like testimony. Malcolm paced, nervous, muttering numbers. Gotta sell at least 20 plates just to make back the meat cost. Mama. If not. Thelma waved a hand. Stop counting failure like it already happened. Baby. That ain't faith. That's just math with no prayer in it. He sighed, rubbing his temples. No one's coming. It's just smoke and meat in a driveway. She took a sip of coffee, then turned to him. You see that smoke? He nodded. You think it disappears? Malcolm blinked. Yeah. It rises. Then it's gone. She leaned in, eyes locked. No, baby. It soaks into shirts, into walls, into memory. Just like how you treat people. She tapped his chest once. You feed people right, they don't forget you. Even if they can't spell your name. He didn't say anything. So she added, you can microwave food, Malcolm, but you can't microwave trust. And just like that, he understood. It wasn't about ribs, or money, or even the smoker that kept coughing like a Baptist choir soprano. It was about honor, about showing up for people even when you're scared you're not enough. That day, they sold 19 plates. The 20th, Thelma gave it away to a boy who didn't ask but couldn't stop staring. Start there, she whispered, and don't forget what this place is really feeding. The chalkboard near the prep sink had been empty for weeks. It used to hold specials, quotes, birthday shout-outs back when the culture still had warmth in its corners. But today, Malcolm stood in front of it with a stick of pale yellow chalk and a quiet mission. He stared at the blank slate for a long moment, then wrote in clean, deliberate print. You feed people right, they don't forget you, Thelma Rhodes. The kitchen bustled behind him, oil warming. Reggie humming a gospel tune under his breath. Lena unboxing fresh greens. But slowly, the noise softened. One by one, people noticed the board. Lena read it first. Smiled, not with her lips, but with her shoulders. Jamila gave a low whistle. That's a good one, she said. But it was Travis quietly slicing lemons at the back station who turned around, wiped his hands on a towel, and asked the question no one expected. Who was she? His voice wasn't casual, it was careful. Malcolm didn't turn around. Instead, he reached up, under the chalkboard frame, and unpinned the faded photo that had lived above the prep table for years, so long that most had stopped noticing it. He walked it over to the center table, set it down. Mama Thelma, Sunday hat, crossed arms, smile like a promise you don't dare break. My grandmother, Malcolm said. She started this with me, in a driveway, with smoke and ribs and $20 worth of hope. Travis leaned closer to the photo. She the reason for the name? Malcolm nodded. She's the reason for everything. A beat of silence passed. Then Travis, voice lower now, almost humble. That quote on the board, that's real. I felt that yesterday, when Noah came in, when y'all didn't make it a thing, just treated him normal. Malcolm looked at him. It is a thing. We just refuse to make it small. Travis nodded. Then, for the first time in 2 weeks, he smiled without irony. And said, I'm glad I stayed. Malcolm didn't answer. He didn't have to. That night, long after the last plate was scrubbed and the front lights dimmed, Malcolm stayed behind. He walked to the storage closet, past mop buckets and crates of vinegar, and pulled down a weathered cardboard box from the top shelf, the one labeled M.T. Recipes plus notes. The handwriting was familiar, slanted, confident, written in blue ink that had begun to fade. He carried the box to the prep table, brushed off a layer of quiet dust, and opened it. Inside, index cards with ingredient stains, folded napkins scribbled with emergency measurements, a photo of Thelma holding a tray of ribs like a newborn, and a leather-bound notebook, tied shut with an old shoelace. Malcolm untied it gently. This wasn't her recipe book. It was something else. On the first page, written in large cursive, feed their stomachs, then feed their silence. For Malcolm, when you're tired of fixing the food and ready to fix the people. He sat down. The room seemed to still itself. Page after page, she had written what he never asked her to teach but always needed to learn. Don't trust a clean kitchen with a dirty attitude. Hire slow, fire gentle. Let your silence be sharper than shouting. If they ever say this place feels different, ask yourself, did you show up this week? Pride don't clean tables. Grace does. Some pages had dates. Others had dried oil blots, as if written mid-shift, mid-lesson. Malcolm flipped to the final entry, dated 1 year before she passed. Culture ain't a policy. It's a pattern. And if you stop tracing it, it fades. He closed the book slowly, both hands covering it like a benediction. And in that quiet kitchen, he realized something profound. The recipes didn't build Thelma's grill. The people didn't, either. Not the walls. Not even the name. What built it was memory turned into practice, and what saved it was choosing to remember out loud. He tucked the notebook under his arm and turned off the light. The morning started like any other. Coffee brewed in the corner, biscuits baked low and slow in the oven. Reggie's speaker played old-school soul music just loud enough to move the air but not the walls. At first glance, Thelma's grill looked like a place simply running on schedule. But Malcolm could see it, the shift. Reggie, wearing a new black apron, added an extra scoop of mac and cheese to a regular's plate without being asked. He had a long week. Reggie said, "Lena," while wiping tables. Paused to pull out a chair for an elderly woman before the woman could reach for it herself. No words, just instinct. Travis, behind the register, greeted each customer with a nod, a name when he remembered it, and the kind of eye contact that said, "I see you this time." And Malcolm? He didn't need to say much, he just stood behind the counter, watching people act on values they no longer needed a meeting to remember. A mother came in with 2 kids. One started crying, the other kicked the booth. Travis didn't flinch. He grabbed a small paper cup of cornbread bites, slid it onto the tray, and said, "This one's on the house. The table's real patient today." The mother looked at him like he'd just saved her. Later, a man in a maintenance uniform came in with grease-stained hands, sat alone, didn't order right away, just stared at the wall like the day was heavier than usual. Lena didn't ask. She just brought him sweet tea and said, "You sit. We'll bring the plate when it's hot." He blinked, like he hadn't been spoken to kindly in days. By 11:30 a.m., Thelma's grill didn't feel transformed. It felt restored. Not flashy, not perfect, but solid, rooted. Like somewhere someone's grandmother might actually want to eat. And Malcolm, leaning on the counter, said under his breath, just loud enough for Reggie to hear, "This feels right." Reggie just smiled and flipped the catfish. About time. At 12:22 p.m., the front bell chimed, soft, familiar. Malcolm looked up from the POS screen and saw him. The man in the charcoal suit, from last week, pressed jacket, polished shoes, that same cautious stiffness in his shoulders, but today, it wasn't as heavy. He walked in slowly, no phone in hand this time, and took the same booth by the window. Before Malcolm could move, Lena was already there. "Back for the catfish?" she asked, cheerful but calm. He smiled. "Not today, just came by to say thank you." She blinked. "For the food?" He shook his head. "No, for the welcome." Lena's face softened. He continued. "Last time I came in, I wasn't in a good place. Had just left a deal that went sideways. Everything in me wanted to sit somewhere quiet and feel, not invisible. And here, somehow, you made that happen. Didn't ask questions, just showed up with sweetness and a recommendation." He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folded envelope. "I've written about 500 restaurant reviews in my career. Corporate, hospitality, hotel chains, all that. But this one." He tapped the envelope. "This one, I'm not sending to any publication. I'm sending it to people." To who, Lena asked. He handed her the envelope and said simply, "To everyone who forgot what service feels like when it's not for a tip." He turned, nodded once at Malcolm near the counter, and left as quietly as he came. Lena opened the envelope. Inside a one-page letter, typed, and at the top, in bold. Subject, "The place that reminded me people still care." She didn't read it aloud. She didn't have to. By the time she finished reading, Lena's hands were shaking just slightly, like someone had just handed her something too human for words. She passed the letter to Reggie. Reggie read it, then folded it once and handed it to Malcolm. And all Malcolm said, with a steady voice and a full heart, was, "Make a copy, frame it, hang it by the door." And just like that, Thelma's grill didn't just feel restored. It was recognized. The sky had turned the color of cooled iron when Malcolm stepped outside. The day had folded itself neatly. No incidents. No apologies. No explanations. Just the quiet rhythm of a team that had started to trust not just each other, but the room itself. He leaned against the brick wall beside the front window, arms crossed, the night breeze slipping past his collar like a memory. Above him, the neon sign buzzed gently, Thelma's Grill. One corner of the G still flickered soft, persistent. He'd told the electrician to leave it, said it gave the place a heartbeat. From inside, laughter rose and fell. Reggie joking with Jamila. Travis playfully arguing with Lena about how to properly slice sweet potatoes. None of it forced. None of it polished. Just real. Malcolm took a sip of cold tea, now more tradition than drink. That's when he heard footsteps. Turning slightly, he saw someone walking up the sidewalk, hands in jacket pockets, head down. It was Haley. She stopped near the entrance but didn't go in, didn't wave either. Just stood there for a second, then pulled something from her coat, walked up to Malcolm and handed it to him, a small folded sheet of notebook paper. "I found this in my locker," she said, "from the old schedule board. Didn't know it was still taped there." Malcolm opened it. It was a quote, scrawled in faded ink, familiar. "Pride don't clean tables, grace does. He looked at her. She shrugged. "I still got things to unlearn," she said, "but I get it now." Then she turned and walked off, no ask, no offer, no drama. Just a woman carrying truth for once instead of defensiveness. Malcolm watched her disappear into the dusk, then looked back down at the note. He folded it carefully and slid it into his back pocket next to the drawing of Mama Thelma, still watching. The lights inside dimmed. Reggie locked the front door. Lena waved through the glass. Malcolm stayed a moment longer, looked up at the flickering sign, took a breath, and whispered, "We're still watering, Grandma." Then he walked back in to keep the light on. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Every click helps us bring more powerful stories of empathy, justice, and silent strength to life. Your support is what fuels this journey. Let's keep standing together and rising higher, one story at a time. Stay safe and inspired.